Hello, in this short lecture I will give you a couple of reasons why God doesn't exist. The first reason why God doesn't exist is because of the fact that God is perfect, then He would have never created such an imperfect world. The second reason why God doesn't exist, because God would have never created the human beings that are capable to do sins and crimes and evil, because if the purpose of God in creating the human beings was to put them to the test, then from the beginning he could have created not the human beings, but he could have created perfect creatures that can never do evil, that can never do sins and crimes and so on. So there is no reason in creating something and then put it to the test when you can from the beginning create something that is perfect. Okay. And we should also remember that God knows what will happen in the future, and from that reason he knew that the human beings will do evil, will do sins and crimes and so on. And so why he created them from the beginning if he knew that the human beings will do evil and sins and crimes and so on? And from that reason, I've already told you that he could have created perfect human beings that are not perfect creatures, not human beings, perfect creatures that are not capable to do any evil, to do any sins and crimes and so on. So that is the second reason, and from that reason, God didn't create the human beings, and therefore God doesn't exist. So that was the second reason why God doesn't exist. The third reason why God doesn't exist is that God would have never created such a reality in which there is so much human sufferings, so much violence, so much cruelty, so much death and murders, so much diseases, so much wars, so much poverty and hunger, and so much natural disasters such as earthquakes, floods and hurricanes. So from that reason, God would have never created this world, and therefore God doesn't exist. The fourth reason why God doesn't exist is that God would have never created such a reality in which the very existence of the predator is dependent in his ability to kill the prey. The very existence of the lion is dependent in his ability to kill the deer or the lamb or other animals in order to survive. So such cruelty and injustice would have never created by God, that he is perfect. Okay. And the fifth reason why God doesn't exist is that there are actually three monotheistic religions. Monotheistic is defined as a belief in one God, the oneness of God. And those three religions are the Judaism, the Christianity, and the Islam. And those religions contradict each other in the explanation of how God created the world. And they also don't have the same God. The God of the Christianity is not the same God as the God of the Judaism or the God of the Islam. So because of those contradictions and the differences in gods between the religions, we can say that all of them are false, are not true. They are all fake, and they are all the invention of the human being. And God was created by the human being. It is the invention of the human being. And for that reason, God doesn't exist. Okay? The sixth, on the last reason why God doesn't exist, because there is a logic reason for the non-existence of God. We can say that logically it is impossible that such entity or such a being that is all power, that is omnipotent, exist. And I will explain why. Because we can ask the simple question, if God is able to create such a big stone that he himself cannot lift. And if the answer to that question is positive, that is to say God is able to create such a big stone that he himself cannot lift, so there is something that God is not able to do. He is not able to lift the stone that he himself created, and for that reason God is not all power, God is not omnipotent. Okay, and if the answer to this question is negative, so we can deduce the same conclusion, because God, that is to say, God is not able to create such a big stone that he himself cannot lift. So he is not all power. He is not omnipotent. So from that example, we can conclude that there is no such a being or such an entity that is all power, that is omnipotent. And therefore that God that is supposed to be all power doesn't exist, because there is no such entity. It is impossible that such entity exists. Okay? And for that reason God doesn't exist. So this was all the reasons for the non-existence of God. Okay? Thank you very much.